Hey, hi, hello. Welcome to Diana Emerson today. We are listening to disturbing cases.
Vanessa Marcotte had been living her dream, living in New York and working at Google. She was visiting family in Princeton when she went out for a walk and never came back.
It has been more than 4 months since Vanessa was tragically taken from us. Not a day goes by that we don't reflect on the enormity of our loss. Vanessa possessed special gifts. She was a loving, caring, and intelligent young woman who had her whole life ahead of her.
On August 7th, 2016, 27-year-old Vanessa Marcotte was visiting her mother, Rosanna Marcotte, in her hometown of Princeton, Massachusetts, when tragedy struck the family. Vanessa was merely going for a walk in the afternoon, but little did she know that it was the last time she would ever be seen. Oblivious of the future, she left her mother's home in the early afternoon. When a few hours passed and she still hadn't returned, her mother immediately called the police. But what unfolded next was something that no mother should ever have to go through. What could have happened to the young woman just going out for a walk? Was her tragedy part of something bigger? The town of Princeton, Massachusetts is rich in its history. Apart from its many scenic views, the place has witnessed some of the important events in history. Quite a few famous names are associated with the place, including Edward Savage, the painter who made Washington's portrait. Its history tends to draw tourists in, who come here looking for an adventure and are waiting to be amazed. With a population of just under 3,500 people, Princeton is a relatively small town where almost everyone knows everyone. But in 2016, when a shocking crime occurred here, it had the residents looking over their shoulders and questioning whether it could be someone they knew who was responsible. Vanessa Teresa Marcotte was born on June 17, 1989, in Leominster, Massachusetts, to her parents Rosanna Marcotte and John Marcotte. An only child, she attended the Bancroft School in Worcester, Massachusetts. She had an aspiring career in communications. She earned her degree and graduated with honors from Boston University in 2011, and immediately after, she was able to work in the field of online marketing. Inevitably, she was able to make her way towards becoming an account manager at Google in New York City. This 27-year-old woman was following her dreams and ambitions, looking for a future that would suit her best. Her presence was capable of leaving an impact on the people around her. An e-commerce specialist named David Garish called her dedication towards her work and career as achievement-oriented and labeled her as an efficient customer service specialist. No doubt, Vanessa had a bright future ahead of her, if only she was allowed the chance to keep moving forward. On a seemingly mundane afternoon of August 7, 2016, Vanessa was visiting her mother who lived at Brook Station Road, Princeton, in the state of Massachusetts. She went out for a walk at around 1 p.m. During this time, she was seen chatting on the phone when she stopped for a drink near Hubbardston Road. However, her mother was unaware of her whereabouts at the time. Several hours later, when there was still no sign of Vanessa, and her mother was unable to reach her phone, she started to panic and decided to file a missing persons report for her daughter. It was unlike Vanessa to not respond to her mother if there was ever a change of plans. The police, realizing the gravity of the situation, immediately organized a search party specifically dispatched to look for her. The search began soon after, but there was still no sign of her. The police checked all the routes she usually took, but it was as if Vanessa had simply vanished. Vanessa's last known location placed her near the crime scene at 2:11 p.m., after which no more signals were picked up from her phone, indicating that the phone was either shut off or disabled. It was around 8 p.m. into the night when the police officers came across a naked corpse in a heavily wooded area almost half a mile away from Vanessa's mother's house. The officials were instantly able to identify her as Vanessa Marcotte. Her corpse was badly bruised and burn marks spread all over her body. There were strangulation marks on her neck as well. After the authorities had recorded all the evidence found at the crime scene, the investigation into her death began. Given the state of the body, the officers were able to confirm that she'd been assaulted and the severity of the wounds indicated that she'd fought back with whatever she had. Apart from her clothes, her cell phone and earphones were missing as well. Forensic specialists were also able to recover foreign DNA on the corpse as well, an important discovery that had proved to be crucial later on in the investigation. The case in itself gained a lot of media attention. The case of Vanessa Marcotte was all over the news, with people asking questions like, why was she targeted?
A man wanted for the murder of a Google employee from New York is in custody. Vanessa Marcotte was killed while jogging near her mother's home in Massachusetts.
In the next couple of days, almost all the news channels were doing extensive coverage of the investigation.
We have the second jogging murder in a week, this time in Massachusetts, where a young woman runner was killed in broad daylight, drawing comparisons to last week's killing in Queens, New York. Vanessa Marcotte had been living her dream, living in New York and working at Google. She was visiting family in Princeton when she went out for a walk and never came back.
The scrutiny of the public eye motivated the authorities to move things along at a quicker pace and hopefully capture the culprit while the trail was still hot. During the initial stages of the investigation, there were quite a few speculations. There were some theories going around that suggested that Vanessa's murder might be related to the homicide of Karina Vetrano in Queens, New York. This homicide in New York occurred on August 2nd, 2016, and much like Vanessa, Vetrano's body also indicated signs of assault and was severely abused. Vetrano's murder had occurred just a few days prior to Vanessa's, and she too was abducted while running and assaulted in the same manner. The similarities between the cases compelled the investigators to find a connection between the two, but it was soon established that other than the manner of abduction and existence of bodily wounds, both the cases couldn't be further apart from each other. No official statement was ever released regarding the similarities of the two cases, but speculations were thrown around for a while. Frustrated, with no other course of action at hand, the authorities finally decided to set up a tip line. They hoped that perhaps civilians might have witnessed something that would eventually lead them in the right direction.
It has been a very long week for investigators in this small town as they try to uncover clues that lead to a killer. They are still focused on a time frame between 1 and 3 Sunday afternoon. That's when Vanessa Marcotte was out for a run along Brook Station Road. Police say no detail is too small. They want information about any car on that road, and they're asking people to come forward if they saw a man this week who was scratched or bruised.
This decision proved to be extremely helpful. With the help of the tip line, through which they received over 1,300 tips, they were finally able to establish that the attacker was most likely a male with scratches, cuts, and bruises over his arms and possibly the face, given the fight Vanessa had put up at the time of her death, as showcased by her autopsy reports. As more information came to light, the police realized that the attack may have been completely random, as opposed to their initial theory of it being connected to other cases. By November 2016, the suspect's vehicle was identified, and by December in the same year, Vanessa's family finally broke their silence. Apart from their gratitude to the community for assisting in the investigation, they announced the establishment of the Vanessa T. Marcotte Foundation.
It has been more than 4 months since Vanessa was tragically taken from us. Not a day goes by that we don't reflect on the enormity of our loss. Vanessa possessed special gifts. She was a loving, caring, and intelligent young woman who had her whole life ahead of her. In her brief 27 years, she had already achieved much, but we know she had much more to do. Vanessa embraced the spirit of giving back and volunteerism. To that end, the family has set up a website, vanessamarcotte.org, so that you may learn more about Vanessa and the causes that were close to her heart. You can also learn about the establishment of the Vanessa T. Marcotte Foundation, which will support projects sharing Vanessa's values.
It wasn't until February of 2017 that the DNA which was found at the crime scene produced some concrete results. The DNA sample helped them further narrow down the characteristics of the culprit. It was revealed to the public that the suspect was likely to be a Hispanic male of athletic build with short or shaven hair. Further witness accounts also indicated that the suspect either possessed or had access to a black SUV on the day of the murder. 6 months after the incident, Worcester County District Attorney Joseph D. Early Jr. ensured the public that the foreign DNA found at the crime scene had been worked on in the labs, and that they finally had a suspect by the name of Angelo Kolonotis.
We got him. Early this morning, state police arrested 31-year-old Angelo Colon Ortiz in connection with the murder of Vanessa Marcotte last August in Massachusetts. On the afternoon of August 7th, 2016, Vanessa left the family home on Brook Station Road, where she had been visiting family to go for a walk, and she never returned.
Angelo Kolonotis was a native Puerto Rican and had a family with 3 kids. According to official records, he had no past criminal history and was a local resident of Worcester for almost a year, which indicated that he knew the surrounding areas quite well. He was employed at FedEx as a third-party contractor. His delivery routes also encompassed areas in and around Princeton. Further interviews with close relatives and friends revealed that Angelo had quite a questionable character. His neighbors claimed that he often made vulgar or perverted remarks to those around him. A few of his former female co-workers also came forward claiming that he was known for making crude remarks about them in Spanish. As more people came forward regarding his offensive behavior, the more it became evident that the tragedy that struck Marcotte may have been an extreme result of an ongoing pattern. To build the case against Angelo, police used a number of key pieces of evidence. Apart from the DNA evidence, quite a few local witnesses placed him around the murder site at the time of death. He was reported to have bought $5 worth of gas at a nearby gas station. One of his neighbors mentioned that he'd seen Angelo somewhere around noon, standing behind the hood of his black SUV. But after a while, as 2 p.m. rolled around, he was no longer there. The data from the cell phone records also placed him there at the reported time. The timestamp from Vanessa's phone was affirmed to be near the time of attack, and Angelo had no alibi to place him anywhere else during the hour. On April 14, 2017, a 36-year-old Angelo Kolonotis was arrested on the charge of murder in the first degree and aggravated assault. A police officer on patrol had noticed Angelo's car, which matched the description of the culprit's vehicle. The officer decided to follow his gut feeling and immediately followed up by tracking down the license plate, which inevitably led to the arrest. The arraignment was held on April 18th, where the bail was set at $10 million. The DNA was the main piece of concrete evidence leading to the apprehension of the culprit under the name of the law, which is why, during trial, Angelo's lawyer, Eduardo Mansper, attempted to have the DNA evidence thrown out, claiming that the sample was obtained under false pretenses due to a language barrier. However, this claim was instantly refuted by the district attorney, since official records proved that the sample was given up voluntarily. On January 11, 2022, the judge chose to deny the motion to suppress. The DNA evidence was inevitably permitted to be presented as an integral part of the case, and it was on the basis of this evidence that the court was able to convict and sentence Angelo. On October 26, 2022, now 36-year-old Angelo Kolonotis pleaded guilty to second-degree murder and unarmed robbery. The added charge of unarmed robbery is said to have pressured Angelo into finally pleading guilty in exchange for a plea deal. The judge, Janet Kenton Walker, sentenced the man to 25 years to life in prison for the second-degree murder and 20 years to a day in prison for the second charge of unarmed robbery. Apart from the sentence, he'll also not be eligible for parole for the next 45 years of his life. After going through such a harrowing ordeal, it was Vanessa Marcotte's family that insisted on taking the plea deal. District Attorney Joseph Early Jr. reported to the press that since the family didn't want to relive their trauma by listening to the graphic details of their daughter's death, they'd asked him to go ahead and accept the deal.
Under an agreement with prosecutors, the murder charge was reduced from first-degree murder to second-degree, with the approval of Vanessa's family, who filled the courtroom and offered tearful victim impact statements. Rosanna Marcotte, Vanessa's mother, told the judge, "She was my only child. She was my world." Vanessa is seen here with her father, John, who never got to see justice. He died 10 days ago.
The dispirited condition of the family may also have related to the fact that Vanessa Marcotte's father, John Marcotte, had died just 10 days before Angelo's sentencing.
All Vanessa's dad had left to live for was justice. Honestly, every day for the last 6 years, that was the only thing that he was fighting for. But ultimately, I think just having to endure this for so long is really what led him to his death.
The members of the family were trying to cope with yet another loss and couldn't bear to prolong the trial any further. Justice may have taken its time in this case, but it did its due diligence. Despite the overwhelming evidence present in the case, it still took over 6 years for the murderer to be finally sentenced. However, the family isn't entirely dissatisfied with the result. They believe the murderer got the sentence he deserved. They're more focused on the Vanessa T. Marcotte Foundation they started in the honor of her memory. The foundation is currently thriving and is responsible for teaching countless women how to defend themselves against culprits like Angelo Colonotti's. They did not want anyone else to go through the ordeal they had to suffer, so they're passionate about keeping the foundation up and running as a way of continuing Vanessa's legacy.
Go.
Setting boundaries.
Go.
Learning techniques. A room full of women inspired in the memory of one.
She was a beautiful, smart, compassionate young woman.
It has been 1.5 years since Vanessa Marcotte lost her life, attacked while on a run in her hometown of Princeton. Her family and friends now turning tragedy into prevention.
The end of this very emotionally turbulent case leaves us in a very conflicted sort of wonder. The family may have claimed peace with the decision, but do you think the family of the victim got the justice they deserved? Was the judge's decision too lenient, or did it fall in perfect alignment to the crime?